Welcome to Flowers and Tea, where the ladies lead the conversation on pop, politics, and policy. I'm your host, Dr. Beast, and I'm here with my other co-hosts, Shirali. We have Danielle, and of course, Rosemary. And today, our guest is a Brooklyn-based cannabis cultivator, solventless hash educator, consultant, and speaker with 20 years in cultivation. She's widely known for her education-first work across media, workshops, and judging industry platforms. And she is trained under the famous hash maker, Frenchy Cannoli. Please give it up for none other than the Dank Duchess! Welcome, Mama!
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. And of course, you already know we're in Jersey City at the Other Side Dispensary. And I'm so excited to get into this conversation because people do not realize how important solventless is when it comes to health. And, you know, this is obviously a women-centered show, but I tried to get everyone to understand, like, when we're talking about our health and wellness, eating and drinking that butane and all those hydrocarbons ain't gonna help you. Please, talk to me about this.
In the beginning. I was going to say in the beginning there was poop soup, but it's not true. In the beginning we had solventless. We had dry sift, so mechanical way of getting the trichome heads off of the plant has originally been done in the Middle East. We're talking about Lebanon, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran. Charas, which is rubbing the plants, right? Rubbing the plants, each plant that you walk by, rubbing it softly is the original type of concentrate, and that was solventless. And so you're gonna get people who are just like, oh, I heard that she uses water, and water is the universal solvent. Yes, water is the universal solvent. So to a degree, solventless is a misnomer, but it's the accepted way that we speak of any kind of hash that's created without the use of chemicals. So while water is the universal solvent, in this situation, it is used as a carrier, right? And solventless is important because it offers the ability to get these factories of cannabinoids, because a lot of times people think that it's like when you smoke, it's the sticky green, so it's green. No, it's the sticky. The sticky is what matters, and that is where the entire production of your cannabinoids that you're trying to ingest is going to be. So as a hash maker, my job is to collect those trichomes as clean as possible, and when you do it in a solventless way, which is ice water agitation and then drying, and then maybe making it into rosin if you press it, or doing dry sift, which is still agitation, you are allowing your body to ingest the plant and its resin in its rawest form, as raw as possible. And the efficacy of using something like hash, which is a concentrated amount of your cannabinoids, as opposed to smoking 10 joints. You can do 2 dabs, And then it's not even just the fact that you can do a lot less for it being as effective. Sometimes you have some conditions like endometriosis, something with like really high pain, that it's not affected as well by moving slowly. So basically 10, 10, 10, and that being 40 is not the same thing as 40 at one time, right? So,
right.
So sometimes you have to really just bowl it over. And that is important. So as women, as cannabis affects us in the many ways that it does, if you want it as effective as possible and as efficient as possible, as quick as possible, and sometimes as tasty as possible, because combustion isn't always the tastiest, then you go with hash. And if you're going to go with hash, why go with chemicals? Organic, solventless.
Right. I love that. And honestly, I feel like sometimes when I have like gummies that do have distillate in it, like I can taste the difference. Yeah, right. Do you too, D?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about, that little chemically taste. Like if it's not done well, there's like something that's like at the end, right?
And sometimes I feel like, I don't know, I get like a little bit of a headache, or maybe not a headache, but like, all right, with cannabis, I feel like I never necessarily get a hangover, but if the time that I need to kind of like get it out of my system. I don't have enough of that. I do feel like a drowsy draininess, and I feel that way when I take gummies that have that, but not with solventless.
See, that's the difference. I mean, sometimes, like with science, you don't necessarily know why something is good, but you can see how it could be detrimental in some other ways. So if I could say that someone who has some autoimmune disease, someone who's dealing with some deficiencies in some way, when they interact with butane-based products, they feel worse, then let's go with something that doesn't have those chemicals in it. You know what I'm saying? And if they feel better. So while we may not know intimately what the mechanisms are for which I can tell the difference about dabbing some rosin and butane. For one, butane gives that like kind of expansive in the lungs feeling that doesn't make me feel good. And as much as I consume, it really matters that my experience is amazing every single time, right? And it's never weed is weed, right? That experience should be luxurious. It should be comforting. It should make you feel like, yes, this has been given to us by Mother Nature. We're going to appreciate it. And at no point should this be a bad experience. So, you know, chemicals, why?
Yeah.
I think even the experience that, at least for me, that I've had with hash was so spiritual. It felt like the truth serum. I was like, I don't know how much I could do this. And the first time actually I was in India, and it was out of a chillum.
I have my chillum with me. I don't know if you know, like I'm a super chillum, like super chillum freak. Like I have a chillum coming out this year. I love.
But I feel like it's such a different experience, you know, versus like smoking a joint, for example. So can you just speak, because you're the connoisseur with the chillum.
Look at that. You just speak my language with that. Although I'm not. Okay, so just really briefly, making sure that we are appreciating and not appropriating. Chillum is originally from India and Nepal area, right? And it is a straight pipe. It's a torus that has a taper on one. From one side to the other, and it has something in it called a chillum stone, which helps direct the flow of air. And the reason that matters is because the big thing about chillum is about controlling airflow. And even though I mean, I can smoke a good joint with anybody, right? When you smoke chillum with people, it is, for one, the mindset is different. We're not on our phones and such like that. You have a tendency, for one, the chillum, you can't drop the chillum. It's like taking an expensive dab rig. The chillum is reverential. You're there with each other. You're sharing breath, and that the focus that comes on being able to breathe properly, because you know, if you get that volume of smoke and you're not prepared for it, it is the most violent coughing you will ever. I mean, it's the most amazing thing, except when it's not. Okay, it's the most violent thing. So the fact that you have to focus on it, and then when you do it successfully, it feels so good that when you get some good hash, across the bridge, down here, you just feel vagus nerve stimulation. I mean, thank you, Frenchy. Because I didn't know anything about hash. That man brought me to the lights. Wow.
Yes, shout out to Frenchy. And you did talk about, you know, consuming and having a positive experience, but there's parts of this that was not always positive for many people. Can you just talk about really like what you've seen in the pipeline for folks that are legacy and really contributing to honing their craft, but having to navigate some of this chaos and the legal side? Yeah, we go in there, sis. Because legacy is still like
before you hit.
Legacy is still a thing.
The right thing.
No, and let's understand. This is a table for. This is a safe space, and the reality is that legacy is still the transition. It's still not working. We're still not seeing success, and I want someone who's in this vertical and understands this part of it. Where are the hiccups? How do we make this better?
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, you are definitely catching me at a disadvantage because I'm only newly into the situation, and I found myself taking space because I know I don't know everything, right? And I do come from, when I got into cannabis, I was doing medical. I wasn't doing legacy, although I was growing in Florida. That was for my personal stash. But once I got to California, I was in the medical line, and that was fairly straightforward, right? And so my home focus only had to be on growing good weed and making good hash and selling it to the dispensary and do that again. And, you know, educating along the way and such like that. When legalization came up, that came up for me at first in California, because I live in California. I felt like it was so murky and so convoluted and so confusing. And I'm like, I am a very smart person. And I'm not really getting this. And then I got to New York, and I was encouraged to look into it. And I'm only now stepping in, but I can tell you what I have seen from the people that I know who are in it. But don't quote me on anything, because this is still a third-party situation. People really want to, I don't think they always really wanted to, but they do see the benefits, and to a legal, regulated market. But people are being fraught with challenges left, right, and center, whether it's going to be finding a space, raising capital. For people that look like us, raising capital is a lot of the problem. You know what I'm saying? And the eternal wait is problematic, and the fact that everyone doesn't have the privilege to wait so long. That's right. That's really the big thing. So I see a lot of that. That right there, where dreams quietly go to die, because it was like, I've been trying, and you know what, this isn't worth it. But there are people who are making it work, but I'm gonna have to say that overwhelmingly, it seems to me that people appreciate those programs where they are helping them along, because this is not an easy process. Right. It's not straightforward. And this is Jersey. I really don't even know so much about Jersey, but in New York, it is not as straightforward as you think it would be. It's just like, I know to grow weed. Right. Why can't I just get a license and then make it happen? It takes time. It takes procedure. And sometimes it feels like opportunities are missed in the time that things take.
That's right.
But speaking of which, coming from Legacy, how do you feel that operating within this regulated space has impacted perhaps the way that you cultivate and process cannabis?
Well, see, that's the thing. I am only, when I say only now, like my product hasn't even come, and I'm dealing with someone who has a license, where I'm working with them to bring hash, and let's just put it like this. I made the hash in November. We're in March. At least it's in the freezer. Let's just put it like.
Listen, no, not for nothing. I love this discussion. I don't want you to sell yourself short, because the reality is that this is what people need to understand. You are offering a product that you led with how incredible it is, and we all know, and it cannot be brought to the market in the way that it needs to, or at least as fast or as simple, because of all of these roadblocks. So some of these companies that, the product is not exceptional, because they got some money, it's a 1-2.
Money will solve so many problems.
But you are creating such an exceptional product, and simply because of all the regulatory barriers, you can't just get to making the medicine.
Well, just to make sure, I think, my person has license, I think it's his money. I think this is money.
Are there things that you think the regulators should be thinking about, specifically with cultivation, for example, when they're drafting rules and regulations for new states, let's just say? Are there things that you think you would recommend that they build into these regulations that would help?
Let me add a piece. In New Jersey, you cannot cultivate.
I was about to say, if there's one thing that I could just stick on that, it's homegrown.
Yeah.
And homegrown is 100% in there, because once you don't have the option of homegrown, then it no longer is about the wellness of your constituents. It just comes down to being a cash cow. Because if you're so afraid that someone being able to grow their little 6 plants, which I have an issue with, because look, the thing is, the truth of the matter is that if you grew up in California, or you grew up somewhere where they've been cultivating, you know how to get the most out of 6 plants. But this notion that 6 plants is supposed to take care of everybody, when I'm telling you first starting to grow your cannabis, you're not growing amazing medicine. So you have situations where you maybe got boys, you didn't get all kinds of, they're all feminized, and these are all problems that I think that legislators don't understand. So then they make rules that are just like, well, I remember when the rules were initially about the height, the amount of nodes on the plant. It's just like, what are you talking about? None of this is actually what cultivation really is. And I think that that problem is exacerbated by legacy operators not giving the respect and the opportunity all the time to be at the table for them to be able to say, hey, we have the real world way this has worked out for us while we kept things under wraps from y'all. So maybe you should listen to us.
Right.
Duchess, I was gonna ask you, what is your involvement with policy or education on that level at all? Like, are you advising any of these? Are any of the states asking for your advice?
Oh,
or
no,
sitting on a coalition?
Education. I mean,
you know, my education is about how to do it yourself. Because that's the thing. At the end of the day, I still feel like you got to be able to do it yourself. So my education has been, my pocket is consulting with companies about how to do it properly. Right. But my thing for the people is that, look, I'm sorry about Jersey, that you don't have the option, but New York, y'all can grow, so please grow some weed. Like, I'm near obnoxious about it, but I feel like you can't be obnoxious about encouraging people to take agency of their wellness.
That's right.
So, you know what I mean? So I think that if these legislators came from the standpoint of cannabis is medicine instead of cannabis being a commodity, then we will have better policy. If you come from the standpoint of these people never should have been criminalized in the first place, then you don't have all these like ad hoc, but make sure in this and this and that.
You don't gotta go around yourself to fit.
All this deacon and dodging on things because you suddenly realize that like Ray, who's been doing it forever, now can't get a job because you made a stupid policy.
Yes,
that's right.
Yes,
that's right. Yeah. And when you're thinking about that, like you said, your teaching is for the people. So a part of your role in this community space is teacher, builder, protector of cultural standards, like all of those things. What are the different elements of your roles that I didn't mention, and or what do you feel like your role has evolved into more so now? Is there an area where you're like, teaching, I really have to bear down in this, or like protector of standards, I really have to bear down in this? Is there a particular area where you feel more that it's necessary for you to dig into?
Even like media, you said you got a podcast you do so many things.
But the thing is, I got into media, and a lot of people don't know this, is that I got into media through magazines, because when I was in Florida and I was growing cannabis, I didn't want to go online. I knew about IP tracing at the time, and the cops literally were down the block from my house for 8 years, you know what I mean? So every time the woo woo, I was like, oh, today's gonna be the day. Which is really a
terrible way to live.
It was really actually a terrible way to live. Like terrible to the point of, in my whole time of living in Miami, and from when I started growing cannabis, I think less than 10 people have ever been in my apartment. Because that's the easiest way to get caught.
You okay?
They see the light, and then they go say something, you know what I'm saying? So, but I left Florida for two big reasons. One, I could not live like I'm gonna get caught like every day. That stress was really, really high. And the second thing is I felt that media did not accurately portray my type of perspective in cannabis. So I went out there I was going to change media. I wasn't quite sure how, but I was going to, and you have enough of an impetus behind you, have enough faith, and you have a vision, something's going to happen. And what happened is, when I met Frenchy, I didn't know anything about hash. I don't have any desire and care, though I did dab with him. I dabbed some hash, and that was amazing. But I didn't know anything about that. But sometimes things are inevitable, right? And so in talking to him, I asked him out for coffee. Some people don't realize the simpleness of asking for coffee. Asked him to coffee, and we got to talking. He liked my conversation style and the fact that I was a writer. And so he asked me if I would write for Weed World magazine. And that has led to, at this point, based on word count, over 150,000 words about hash. So I have written that through the years in books and magazines and such like that. So media is really important. You know what I'm saying? I got myself on Vice, Bong Appetit, couple episodes. I was like, Be Real called me legendary. I'm feeling myself on that one. I told Too Short, you need to smoke my joint because you're already famous. I told him in the bag. I was like, you're already famous. You will, when they start the shot, you are going to smoke this and you're going to smile.
He was looking to the camera.
He was like, he actually said, he was like, you're so nice, but then you're like Brooklyn. I was like, yeah, gotta say. That's what you're. So, I feel that one of the things that is overlooked, sometimes you just have to be a face that some people can see for a minute, right? And so I didn't feel like I saw myself in these stories, these experiences, being a woman, being black, being Afro-Latina, my family's from Panama, being queer. I didn't see any of that. So when I got a chance to, wrest control of audience, I felt like that's the opportunity for people to be like, oh, you know what? I have never known about hash. I never knew that the person who is, writing the most about it is that. Oh, that's kind of interesting. And that's allowed me to go around the world and, random people like, oh, you're Duchess. You know what? I am. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
and I think that's important just for the fact that, not for, kiss my ass, but for the fact that people are just like, and I saw your video on YouTube and I made hash for the first time and I've been watching you all these times and I made this for my grandma. I love that. And that's why I say it's for the people, because when we harness our digital democracy of social media and YouTube and all of that, we do allow ourselves and our words and our teachings to go on forever, right? So I definitely recognize that. And then this is the in-person thing. And I love the in-person thing. I got a chance what happened is I didn't have $2.3 million or $3 million. See, sometimes you don't have something.
Right.
I get money, right? So when California legalized in 2016, and then they gave us this 1 year of get your together, because even though we had said MSOs weren't going to come in, they are going to come in.
Right.
So they're going to be here. January of 2018, I had to make a decision. Was I going to take New York money? And I was in California, and I'm from New York, BK all day. Nope, didn't want New York money. New York money is the investors who thought that it was a get-rich-quick scheme, and I had seen several of my friends in the space of months get in trouble with New York money. And investors who do see cannabis as a commodity, and they really wanted a fast turnover, and they have no concept of but the russet mites were really heavy this year, and they don't care about that. You know what I'm saying? Pulling back their money real fast or just letting you fall. I said, what can I do? And I had a friend who was just like, well, why don't you just do what you do online and then just do it with people? Go to companies and stuff. And so I started consulting, and that was fun. Consulting's fun. You get to travel a lot of places, get paid pretty nicely about that. But for my rate, the honest truth is that the average person is not going to be able to pay for that, right? But that's why you just keep online, putting out the free. But then in 2023, in conjunction with a CWI and this company called Educate and Elevate, I got the opportunity to teach at several cities all over New York, about 6 cities, and all of the students came for free. I was a line item. Gotta love that when government works for you. You know what I'm saying? I was a line item, and I came in, and that's when you get to see the aha moment in real time. And I'm telling you, that stuff is right there, right there. It's just I see. And then sometimes when we get to smoke some chillum afterwards, they were like, I feel. I see it now. I feel. And that has been really, really good. And then doing that, you know what I'm saying? I remember I did a class in Mexico where they didn't have any light. They were in a fine place. They just ran out of light, fuse broke or something. And I remember we're hauling these buckets, and we ended up making some great hash, because if you understand the fundamentals, you can make hash anywhere, right? So it's those moments of I was ignorant, and now I'm on this other side, and now I see and I can do for myself. You cannot beat that for me. So
all things are possible on the other side.
That's right.
I like something.
Listen, I love that you are definitely speaking the truth about these flawed systems. And then you said you went from "you're so nice, Mr. Too Short" to Brooklyn, right? How do you keep your edge without being labeled difficult? And what advice do you have for women leading with conviction in cannabis? I came in after a 10-year tour, and this was my first thing that I was like, well, the military's not working out, here we are. And I don't know if maybe I was too much of a drill instructor, a drill sergeant, or if there was just too many white men that didn't want their feelings hurt, but that was always what happened. How do you navigate that?
You have that. I'm not usually speechless, but give me a second. Oh, why? Qualify that question. I have to say, most of the time, people are not trying me. I sometimes you just position it in a kind of way that makes things a little bit easier in certain realms, you know, and I always lead with a smile. Yeah. Especially these days, I'm a little bit older. But when I've been, in their eyes, difficult, you know, I lose the followers. 2020 was real rough, you know what I'm saying? 2020, but I was just like, and you're not taking account, you know, I wasn't dealing with the accountabilities, but this idea that these companies and their virtue signaling and whatever, and I was just like, I remember the whole black square thing. I was like, your black square is not safe for black ass. That's what I told them. And that was like first viral thing. I was like, I was so mad about that black square. Yeah. Get out the stupid black square type of thing, right? I think what has happened, and I think it's a privileged position to be in, so I'm gonna be honest about that, because a lot of times people are like, oh, well, Duchess could do it, all the women. No, not exactly. Because I did try to put a couple of feet on the ground. I cultivate. I'm a writer. I'm a judge. I'm a hash maker. You know, I'm a public speaker, and now I run this conference, which okay, International Women's Cannabis Conference. You know what I'm saying? So I put these things on the ground, which allow, sometimes a knee's gonna get, gonna knock out. When Frenchy died, I felt like my tether to hash was definitely tenuous, right? So I had a couple other things to hold on to, but I have to admit that was a little rough. I think that it's super important. Just to be honest, what I'm going to be talking about during the conference is the courage to lead. I think that you have to be okay with people thinking you're difficult. I think actually the problem is we're thinking we shouldn't be considered difficult. Why do I care about your opinion? You are soft. You are soft and you are mediocre. And because you're soft and mediocre, you feel that you're going to project that I'm difficult when I have standards. You know what I'm saying? You were coming from the military when you had to wake up. The bed is just like, oh, but you know what? We're going to have to sleep in it later, so it doesn't matter. No, that wasn't an option. And so a lot of times you just have to like just hold the line on that. And I think it benefits you. Yeah, you're gonna have the crybabies that are just gonna be like, oh, and do their little parking lot, meetings and where they're talking about. But so what? They are talking about you behind you. So they are behind you. Who cares? Okay. You know what I'm saying? They are behind. So I think it takes a lot of courage. And I'm not gonna say that there weren't times fairly recently where I allowed the external pressure, and in my eyes, I mean, I was keeping it outside, but in my eyes, I'm like, for real, you could go so much harder, but you don't want to like lose position. So that happens also sometimes. If you were coming from the beginning, you come out hard. Come out hard because you don't even have anything that you could lose. You know what I mean? So come out hard. Sometimes, you're going to have to be honest, sometimes you get to a position that you're like, okay, I'm building something here, and then you get false belief that these naysayers actually have some power over your mountain. Once you realize that that's not the case, and you will always be hiking up that mountain, and it's just like, sure. Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So, does that mean it's always going to be a net gain? No, there's going to be some losses. But if your mission is pure enough and you want it so very bad, and you see why it's to the benefit not only to you, to your family, to society at whole. Because if we could all smoke a little bit more weed, we can get closer to this. Can we all get along? Plus, we unlearning all these other things that are so terrible for us. If we could do that and understand that, then maybe we'll go somewhere. And then you won't be worrying about this idea of if we stay safe and turtled in, then we are literally subject to the standards of the mediocrity. That's crazy. That's crazy. At some point, you have to be like, I'm standing here, even if I'm gonna stand alone. And guess what? If you're standing alone, first of all, let's not get all in our ego as if I'm the only one who has this message. No. Best believe there are many of us who maybe you have just a smidgen more courage, but you show that courage. Hey, I'm here too. And especially when you're dealing with women, we'll be a net and we'll be fine. So, because most of the times, those people who are going to consider you difficult are those who do not respect your who you are, right? So it's not generally going to be the woman that looks like you that's going to be like, I just can't deal with. And then you know what? There's always going to be somebody.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're not pizza, and some people don't even like pizza.
This definitely resonates because it comes down to like knowing your worth.
Yes.
And I have walked away from too many situations because of exactly what you're saying. Like, you just have to know at what point do you leave, because there's only so much you could take. And when I walked away from, I'm not going to name, one of the law firms that I used to work at, helped build up their cannabis practice area, brought in a ton of clients, and then at the end of the year, my bonus was, it was just, let's just call it non-existent in the sense. And I decided, I was like, you know what, fuck this. If I could do it here, I could do it for myself.
That's
my business was born out of a necessity for my own self-worth. I didn't want to, because I'm not a business owner, I'm a lawyer by trade, but I did it. And when I quit, they said my response is nuclear. They're like, are you sure this is what you want to do? How are you going to go and, who's going to trust you on your own as a solo?
No,
and I was like, well, they trusted me enough to come here, so I think I could do this on my own. And I'm going on year 5 now on my own. And I mean, I've never been happier, and I have freedom. But it's difficult.
I mean, like, it's not going to be an easy road, but like anything we want, how has it been easy? I just saw something on Instagram. Ooh, Instagram teaching me something. So I was just like, you either increase your sacrifice or you decrease your desire. I was like, well, there's that. Wow. So who's going around and be like, you know what, let me go for some smaller dreams so I can have it easier.
Listen, I also think too, like, Charlie, to your point of what they said, like, oh, are you sure you want to do this? Anytime I've had that moment, and I've had that moment when I was leaving a job, and they're like, are you sure you want to do this? That is the moment you are gold. You better get up out of there as quick as you can. Because there's absolutely no reason in the world why you would feel the need to pause or stop or stand in the way of my dreams if you didn't know that what was about to happen was going to be major. So anytime people really take time out of their day to try to stop you or to try to dissuade you, that's when you know that you got the right sauce.
That's a wonderful perspective.
Yes.
The opposition in itself helps show the purpose.
That's right. Because if I wasn't, you would let me. It wouldn't be a problem, right? Right. You're not asking to keep me. You're asking, am I sure I want to do my? Like it's the framing of it. Yeah.
That's because they knew what loss they had once you walked away.
That's it.
I mean, I had the same experience myself. I was laid off in 2009 when the market crashed and tanked, and I was on maternity leave, about to return with my second child, and got laid off. And the market was not good. I thought I was going to find a job right away. I was coming from Big Law. It didn't happen. And so, like you said, what is it? What's the expression? Invention is the mother.
Necessity is the mother invention.
Necessity is the mother invention. That was it. I forced myself to do things that I would have never done for any other reason. And I'm perfectly happy. I've been a solo practitioner for 15, well, my daughter's 17, so 17 years now. And, I've been offered opportunities to go back into firms, and I'm like, absolutely not. I don't need you.
That's right.
Not anymore.
That's the big part there. That's the big part. Understanding that, we will always need support in some way. I mean, there's only so many emails you can answer, right? You know what I'm saying? You will always need support in some way, but the actual juice of the situation, I think you have to believe in yourself. And then also sometimes you have to, like, you asking them, other people ask, want to know if I'm difficult to myself. So how about I just set up a situation that, like, keep my own difficulties here, but I'm not going to take any extra, situations that are going to make me act out in a way, And I think it's important to know yourself and know what you're willing to tolerate. And I think these days we should tolerate the least possible.
Okay.
Like, why do we have to tolerate
anything?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that sounds terrible.
Right.
Yeah, my infamous saying as of late is I go places where I'm celebrated, not tolerated.
Exactly.
Forever and always.
There's a difference in that.
Forever and always.
That is a huge difference. And plus, no dudes are being told, do you have to worry about being... They're not having this conversation.
Right,
and if nothing else, that's how stupid it is.
Yep.
That's right.
Speaking of conversations, so with all these platforms available to you, what is the measure for you, right, that you're getting your message across? Is it seeing more women in these spaces? Is it, seeing the people that you educate doing things for themselves? What is the measure for you?
Well, I am happy that, like, there are a couple metrics, right? So I do have, so in all these years that I have done these in-person things, I have had 7 people go on to open solventless labs of their own, that they're in their respective states, and and in one country, that they're like, this is how I make my money. So that's great. And then really, people a lot of times are just trying to take care of themselves. Like, it's sometimes you're like, oh, is it causal cannabis and then the depression and cannabis and mental health? No, because of the depression and mental health and people realize that cannabis is a good option, right? And a lot of times people need to be seen. And maybe my door is a little bit too open. I'm in that DM all the time, and I'm just like, I should be charging for this thing right here. But people come back with their pictures of their hash, and then I get that little delayed aha moment there. They tell me something random, like, oh, I see you changed from the Voss bottle. Like, you were really paying attention on what I'm pressing with, okay? That was like 5 years ago. And they keep coming back to it. So in a way, something like YouTube, where the vast majority of my information is just straight how to do. And when you see those numbers in the hundreds of thousands, it's just like, y'all see how to do. That part is pretty nice. And then when you did ask the question about how have things transformed, I feel like in the beginning, I had a lot to prove. I had a lot to prove in terms of like whether I am someone that you should listen to with regard to hash. And I have a way of teaching that really people seem to really go with. But I was posting a lot of how to. So we're talking about a couple years of that, like 4 years of like, you see, I have taught you how to. But then I started using cannabis in a very unhealthy way. I was going through a divorce, and my whole life seemed like it was falling apart, and I was smoking a lot, like a lot. These people, like, oh, I got a 3.5 joint. My uh-ohs, which stand for orifice openers, 7 grams. 5 grams of flour, 2 grams of hash, and during those interesting months, I was smoking like 3 of them a day. So that is like 21 grams of weed and hash, right? Yeah. And what happened was I was really heavy. I would say September 2018 toward the end of the year. And then January 2019, I had a good mushroom trip. As soon as I got up there, got past the giggles, whatever, it was like, okay, so you're using cannabis the wrong way. And I was like, well, you just tell me about business, huh? It's like you are abusing the hell out of cannabis. And it was a pretty intense trip. One of those long ones, 6 hours, a lot of crying. And then I couldn't find any weed to smoke a little bit, so it was a little rough type of situation. And then I realized that it's not about just about teaching people how to deal with cannabis in terms of how to grow it, how to make it, but how do we integrate this into our lives. So I would say in the last several years, I've had my ups and downs that I've shared some online, and sometimes I've just disappeared and come back and been like, big mental health issue for a while, and now I'm back, But I find that at this point, the average person is not necessarily going to be making hash, but the average person has to wake up and love themselves. So if they have to wake up and love themselves, and I might say something or give a perspective that could make things a little bit easier, that is, to me, that's the positive vibe there, right? So I'm not going to be on this I'm never going to be a meditation channel or something like that. And BK is going to come out sometimes. BK is good, right? But I am aiming, my purpose, I really want to advise people on as deep as level as they can meet me on how integrating cannabis and hashish and psychedelics in their lives can just make them a better person. Right. If you make you a better person, you can do all the mountain stuff. You know what I'm saying? You can do all the mountain stuff. So that's it. How do we work with this plan?
Whew, you said so many things that just hit me. And we had an episode last season where we spoke to my wife, actually, who came on, and she was talking about being a new consumer as a mom, and just what that experience was. And she also talked about just taking gummies versus some other methods. If we are trying to get people that are interested in integrating this into their life and they're hesitant, what are what's some advice that you would give, or even for other people to know they have this experience and they're like, girl, you got to try this, and then they're like, you do this and you wasn't ready for what had happened, and now we got a situation.
One of the standard things to say is come in on edibles. I don't think that works for everybody.
Ooh, okay.
I don't think. I can smoke anybody under the table, and edibles really mess me up. And I have had worst experiences in cannabis dealing with edibles, and not 1,000 milligrams. This 35 was just too
yes.
this was a bad experience, and I wouldn't wish that on anybody, right? So I would, you know what I would really suggest? I would suggest a 1-to-1. That's what I'm suggesting to you.
Yes.
I would suggest a 1-to-1 where you have THC and CBD just in the most beautiful union. Maybe you get some of these little dog walkers. These little, these little mini things. Right. I know it's your little, because I feel like that way about dog walkers too. But these little dog walkers in little bits and dose your way up. Cannabis is never gonna kill you. So, honey, if you take 3 dog walkers, 4 dog walkers, you're gonna be fine. The worst is, it's not gonna be worse than some bad situation of edibles. About that. So I do believe that. But if you want to come in even earlier, sometimes people don't really understand that you have to change a fundamental understanding about cannabis so that you don't take the stigma unconsciously with you, right? You don't take that along of like, oh, this makes me feel good, but I really shouldn't be doing this, or let me test myself on how long I could go without it so that I could show that it's not a crush. Ugh. How about we learn? Open up a book first.
I do that all the time.
That's really?
Yeah, it's so terrible because I grew up with so many addicts in my family that I'm always doing that to myself. Like when I start to feel dependent on something, I'm like, let me take it away just to prove to myself that I don't have this dependency to it.
Okay, that's the military thing. Okay, but your body would appreciate if you did not do that, because do understand this. Would you say you're dependent on water? Oh my God, look at you drinking that water. No. Oh, you should be able to dry desert it. There are people in other countries that are making their kidneys go through it all day without any water. And look, you just drinking on schedule. Right. You know what I'm saying? I think we have to let go of this idea that there's some prescribed way of us supposed to interact with anything in life, all parts, people, coffee, da-da-da. Stay in the balance that works for you. Now, does that require you understanding your own baseline? Yes. So it's kind of a little cyclical nature, because I find the mushrooms have helped me, but I got into the mushrooms because of the cannabis, and then how do you get into the cannabis, if you know, type of thing. Let's do some education. Dr. Rachel Knox will tell you that your ECS will be better. Like we went to Thailand for 54 days, just came back in February. Gotta tell you, it's terrible. And I made a post about how I'm smoking significantly less. I was down to like sometimes a gram and a half in a day. I just told you I did 21 grams a day. Do you know how lovely that sun was? The food, all the things that keep our ECS working, ready exercise, much less stress, feeling of safety. I feel that when we bring in these other variables, because cannabis our lives are so heavy that putting it all on cannabis, like, fix me. Yeah, I took a smoke now. That's too much. And in that way, you're one note dependent. But your homeostasis is dependent on you getting sun in those eyes, and you getting enough sleep and enough water, and your ECS will be happy, you'll be happier. Now maybe you are deficient in some of the signaling and you need some help, okay? So what? Look, you messed up your foot. Your foot got messed up. I'm sorry. Framing now. Your foot got messed up. I'm sure maybe you were irritated that sometimes the crutch, whatever, but weren't you thankful that you could get around because you had the assistance of something? Were you less of a person? Did you care less about your ambulatory needs because you were using crutches? No. You wanted to get it done and help and support. And we will find that throughout our lives, our cannabis usage will fluctuate in its own way, and maybe it won't. Maybe you would need to be on, Zoloft and Prozac and Wellbutrin and Vyvanse and all these things, and you're like, good gracious, I could just have this little bit of tea with some cannabis in it and I'll be great. So what? We sometimes stigmatize the fact that we live in a society for which the amount of stress that is daily on us is not what we were built for. Facts. So by all means, smoke your cannabis if it makes sure that you're better to your kids and you're better to your wife so she can be better to the kids and you can come here and the patients will be happy. Smoke or eat or do whatever you have to. But when we operate from this premise as if life is all good. Look, when life was all good in Thailand, guess what? I smoked a little bit less. Did that mean I love cannabis less? No. Right. But I didn't need her as much. But sometimes when I want to party, we partake. But you know what I'm saying? So we come from that premise, and I think that's a big thing. We come from the premise that it's all good. It's not good. It's gravelly, and it's all this, and you're trying to skateboard over gravel. No. If I could throw some cardboard in front of me every single time so I can make this a little bit smoother, why shouldn't we? Because we don't live, we have all these rules that come from a mindset of you do the least possible. God made you perfect. Okay, God made us perfect. This is great, but like, God gave us free will, and you are terrible to me, and my life condition is terrible. So my life is not perfect at this time. Let me have a little weed, and I don't kill you, and then it'll be a little bit more perfect for both of us.
That's right.
How about that?
Duchess, you were speaking a word, because this is, I find myself in these spirals of like changing up like how much I'm smoking here and there, and I literally, last time I had to say the same thing to myself. I literally had this conversation. I said, guess what? I'm smoking a lot, and guess what? That's okay right now. Because guess what? I'm stressed. Right now.
Like,
and that's what my body did. My body is saying, yeah, you need some sleep, which we did. You need some water, and you need a little bit extra, you know. And then when you don't need it, you don't need it. So I'm so glad. This was an affirmation right now, which you just get right here for me, and I hope for many others that like where you're. I always say, be when you're at when you're there. Yeah. When you're like, be where you're at when you're there. Like you cause yourself so much more stress trying to like shaming yourself for being where you're at when no, this is where I'm at today, and tomorrow I may or may not be there, and that's okay too. So because you're conscious of it, you're not just allowing. There's this fear that we're going to allow ourselves to sink into the abyss. We're not, because you're conscious of it in the first place, right?
Yes. And also badass women that are going to get out of the spiral soon enough.
You don't get the worst and don't pull yourself like, come on now.
But the thing is, where did we even get that narrative in the first place? But the media making us think that, like, look at Sandra. Sandra has some weed. Nobody wants to talk Sandra anymore.
Don't be like Sandra.
They literally indoctrinate us with this idea that if you are smoking more than, I don't know, whatever they think,
that's right.
then you are going to just slide into this abyss of nothingness.
That's right.
And then that itself gives us a whole idea that sometimes you do need to let go and slide.
Come on.
And you know what? You will come to a stop.
Come on.
Or you won't.
Come on, trust yourself in the universe. Maybe you need to crack wide open, okay?
Maybe you just need to slide into another situation. Like, oh my God, I'm in a totally different dimension, okay?
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Some people are like, I was smoking when I was 17, 18. I started smoking at 23. I think 22.
Me too.
Yeah, late 23, early 24. Yeah. I was a math major at Howard. Say no to drugs. I was like, no one's gonna mess up my brain. And then one day the cannabis spoke to me. And after 2 years of telling my partner that I was like, you so smart, why you smoke so much weed? Then the cannabis said something to me. And I was like, oh my God. Then I was like, you know what? Let's go with this. And then I smoked, and then I did some calculus, and I did specifically some differential equations. So if y'all know what that is, okay? That's not just Cal 1, okay? And I was like, I can do this. My brain is so here. I realized they lied. It literally, I was radicalized right then and there. Right then and there.
Yes.
Because I was such a black and white person, mathematics and logic, I now could see all these grays, and I wanted to see every gray possible so I could really understand. Guess what? That will smoke you out of house and home. So what did I have to do? Grow some weed.
That's it.
That's literally what happened. I had to necessity, motherhood of invention. I got here because I was greedy.
That's it.
I was
in the best way.
I was 43 the first time I tried cannabis.
Oh, look at this late bloomer.
Very late. Actually tried it because I got into this industry, and I said to myself, you know, I'm here working with people, and they're talking about things that I don't understand, and let me try it. And I mean, game changer. Shortly thereafter, I suffered second-degree burns on my legs, and a client brought me a salve made first with CBD and then THC, and complete believer in the power of the plant. It was completely different. My father was at the time going, had cancer, was in chemo, suffering, and because culturally, right, we're Puerto Rican, it was a gateway drug, and suffered needlessly for years because the doctor offered him, medicinal marijuana, did not take it. And it made me realize at that point that there really is a need for advocacy and understanding the medicinal purpose, right? And that's really what caused me to stay in this industry and do what I do.
in a little bit of that experience, I have been going back and forth about the trips, about the shrooms trips. And I've heard so many different experiences, mostly all positive. And how do you think other people can use that to sort of enlighten them? And I'll even take this information for myself, because I love to hear about other people's journeys. I feel like I'm so spiritual and I am so awakened that I'm like kind of scared. Like, how more else can you awaken me? Like, what else am I going to see and know? I probably don't want to know.
So you haven't ever...
Never.
Oh, okay.
Never.
But, you know what I'm saying? We're all going to be virgins to something. So I've been involved with mushrooms, 21 years. So 21 years. I happen to be a painter also, besides the stuff I do in cannabis, and I almost exclusively paint mushrooms. Huge, large-scale paintings of mushrooms, right? I love mushrooms.
All right, I'm glad I
love
asked
them. I love them. Is it always great? No.
I think that's
This is one of the situations, though, that I would tell a person to start with microdosing, because the experience of microdosing is just it's so subtle and so amazing at the same time. People are going to ask me, this is wonderful to say. This whole thing that we're talking about, take 0.1 to 0.3, is not really that helpful. And let me tell you why. So there's this idea that, and it has been lauded and understandably lauded by the people who we've learned from, Paul Stamets and James Fadiman. Mad props to y'all. But they have changed their tune on some things. But sometimes it takes a while for things to come through the discourse, whatever, right? So mushrooms, and just to make sure, mushrooms are plants, they're fungi, different, keeping them all together, right? Mushrooms have different strengths. So when they tell you, take 0.1 to 0.3 of something, if you're doing something like Golden Teacher, that might be a certain thing. Golden Teacher is about 7,000 to 8,000 micrograms per gram. But then I happen to have some Trinities in my pocket, and they're like 16,000 micrograms per gram. No, obviously that doesn't work with just this idea of just like, go just take this amount. And what will happen is you'll find some people sometimes like, this is not a microdose, because you had something that was very, very strong. Right. And therefore, you had 0.3 of it, which more felt like 0.6 and if you're not ready for that, and that's not where you generally are going to, for some people it can be, but not where you're going to have a life transformation, but it's most definitely no longer unperceptible. This is not it. You are perceiving. You are I thought those bricks were like oriented that way before. You know what I'm saying? You're perceiving certain things. So I would go with microdosing just because the effect timing is generally between 3 and 6 hours. It is very, very not like a trip. You are microdosing and working. You're microdosing and coming to work and like being nicer, being more open, not letting emotions pollute the way you would ordinarily act. And not only just emotions, but our past attachments and our past ways of doing things. And it's more of a clean slate. It's more of a, in a way, confident you. And sometimes when you don't have the peanut gallery, you can do more art, because you can do more work. You can be more effective because, a lot of times we're just introspective, a little too into ourselves. Yeah. But that's a totally different place than like 5 grams. You know what I'm saying? We meeting God and things like that. that is awesome. But I will say that one of the most important parts of the mushroom experience, besides the setting and all of that is super key, is the integration. And so I am very disappointed. So I'm very hopeful the fact that Black and brown people are getting involved in that which used to be said that's white people stuff. That was not. That's been part of our culture from the beginning.
That's right.
But without education, what you're having is people like, trap. We just mushroom man, and look what I'm doing. I just saw this girl this morning was just like, can you tell I'm on mushrooms right now? And I was like, honey, you are not supposed to be involved in this media nonsense. Right. This is an opportunity for you to meet yourself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And instead, we have turned ego dissolution into performative ego attention grabbing.
That's half the health and wellness market. That's we know so many in health and wellness market.
Getting indications that we can't talk anymore.
Come
we
on.
obviously need to talk some more about that.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's it.
So I will say this.
Come on.
Have the right intentions. Have a good sitter. And I would always encourage having a little bit of cannabis available because often cannabis can also help the come up. Some that little buzzy kind of feeling.
Yeah.
That part is not that fun.
Wait, that
can be a feature.
Oh, I don't, girl. I'm listening.
It's a feature. It's a buzzy feeling because what the situation is that mushroom bodies are made out of chitin. Like it's like eating a whole bunch of spiders. You can't break down chitin, right? So there's some stomach upset. Plus, there's this feeling of you ever feel like you're about to do something, like about to do whatever that feeling of about to. There's there's like 5 minutes of that. It's not that fun. So like an anticipation kind of feeling. So that part is not that fun.
You see, we was going on the right direction.
You were good there until it's like, the exact thing I'm running from is the first five.
The problem though is that when we don't provide the good and the bad with the
that's
education,
exactly right.
then we are looking through rose-colored
That's
glasses
right.
that might as well be like.
I'm so glad you're giving the full real deal Holyfield. That's how it's supposed to
But
be.
we can talk about mushrooms and episode. I love mushrooms.
Yes.
Listen, that is the purpose of this table, to continue to educate and really offer so many perspectives. I mean, listen, maybe you want to go on your own enlightening journey, but be that as it may, education, messaging, this is what's going to drive us forward. So please, Duchess, please tell everybody where to find you, anything, the conference, please shout it all out.
Couple things. So again, I am the Dank Duchess. There is no T in Duchess, okay? So across all platforms, I have virtually homesteaded everything. You will find me at thedankduchess.com, Instagram.com/thedankduchess. You understand, et al. As she mentioned, on March 29th, I am hosting the International Women's Cannabis Conference. It is now a 1-year anniversary, and over the last year, we have featured over 80 speakers from 10 countries around the world. 25 minutes, give us some education, and we will love you for it. So I really hope that you can visit intlwcc.com, or you can just visit my website, thedankduchess.com, and you'll see tickets. She's going to be speaking.
I will definitely be there, and we are going to continue this message on making sure that we are educating and advocating and just loving on this plant of ours.
Yes.
All right, well, if there's nothing else, ladies,
Good.
this is Flowers and Tea. Until next time, peace.